Today on the Pitchbook podcast, we have the wonderful and talented Melissa Clark, who is running for mayor of Eagle Mountain City. Batter up!
Melissa, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Thanks for doing this. It's been so fun. Like I'm really enjoying this. Selfishly, it's just been fun to spend. I mean, a lot of people they go to the cottage meetings. Maybe they have 10 minutes with the famous Melissa Clark. We get a whole hour with you, so we're
And
kind of
so do all our listeners. So do all our listeners. So this is great.
It's been fun. It really has been just to kind of get all the little I don't know. I feel like in a cottage meeting, it can get a little bit competitive, or you only have 2 minutes to talk.
Yeah, it's
Where
an
here we
elevator
just,
pitch. Elevator
yeah,
pitch. And this is
yeah,
where we get to know the people, the real person behind the
yeah.
person that's running.
Like
So
exactly
I
as
like that.
best as you can in an hour. So we're really excited and grateful that you are taking time out of your busy schedule. We know that you've got a full family schedule. You're running the kids around, full time mom, full time running the Chamber of Commerce, and we're just really grateful that you're taking the time to share a little bit more of yourself with the citizens of Eagle Mountain. So, I guess just to start things off, could you maybe just share with us a little bit about your background, where you're from, some of those formative experiences as a kid growing up, and what brought you to Eagle Mountain?
Awesome. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. I grew up in Minnesota, and when I was a kid, I thought that I lived the most idyllic childhood. It was like amazing. One of my set of grandparents had a dairy farm, so I spent a lot of my summers working and just taking it all in on their dairy farm, and it was amazing. In the middle of nowhere, Little Falls, Minnesota was the name of the city. And then my other side of my family, my dad's parents owned a little hometown coast to coast hardware store. So my parents were literally from opposite ends of the track. My dad was from the east side, my mom was from the west side where all the farmers were. And as a kid, I spent tons of time with my grandparents. I was the oldest grandchild and an only child between my mom and dad. And then when I was about 2.5, 3 years old, my parents were divorced, and that was pretty common at the time. But it just changed my life. I went from mom and dad's house every other weekend and different things like that. And eventually, I lived just with my mom, and we lived in kind of the ghetto of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And that's relevant because it kind of shapes my thinking on housing. I grew up in the low income housing, what some people called the projects, and I hated it. And I watched as I was a kid all of these different families that had been in this particular type of housing for generations. And looking back on it, I realized that I didn't want that for my kids. And then, frankly, I didn't want it for anyone's kids. So that's kind of shaped who I am when I make housing decisions. But eventually, my mom got sick, and I ended up having to move in with my dad and my stepmom, which in a lot of ways felt like being almost like a foster kid because they had their own set of kids, and I was coming into the situation completely different and kind of living out of
I
a
see.
suitcase
How
still.
old were you at that time? Can I ask?
I was an eighth grader when I moved in
Okay.
with my dad and my stepmom. So
Okay.
like during the most
The,
crucial, difficult time of one's life.
the
Yeah,
normal
it was
teenage years, they're so easy. Yeah, I
great.
hear you. Yep.
Great.
Okay, go
And it
on.
was interesting because I went from the ghetto to kind of like suburban rural, a lot like what Lehigh was 30 years ago. And that's the type of city that I went to high school in. My parents, my dad and my stepmom lived in a really small community that's a lot like what Eagle Mountain was 20 years ago. So it's kind of interesting to see what I've seen in my hometown happening now and unfolding here in Eagle Mountain. Eventually, I graduated from high school. I moved out here to Utah. I went to school back at UVSC, back when they called it UVSC before it was UVU, and studied elementary education and kind of a minor in musical theater and vocal performance, and that was super fun.
Do you sing, Melissa?
Oh yeah, I'm a
You
classically trained singer, so
what?
but I won't be singing during this interview.
Well, that was the
Oh,
next question.
okay. I didn't know that.
But I will
I
say
mean,
this.
surely you could do
Come
some
here.
poor unfortunate soul, Little Mermaid for us. Come
Oh my
on.
gosh, I'm so good at that song because
Poor
I had to do that
unfortunate
when I was like
soul.
in eighth grade. So
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
Hey,
Okay, we
so
need
just
to
real
work
just
that
real
in.
quick, I was the drama club president for 2 years in a row, and did stand-up comedy for a while. So we have a lot in common. I was in all the plays, and anyway, didn't do it in college, but all through high school. So very cool.
I love that. I love that. I actually didn't do a ton of it in college either. I did most of it when I was in junior high and high school.
Hmm.
And I met my husband Nathan out here. We worked together at Feature Films for Families. I don't know if you guys remember Rigoletto,
Yes.
the
Yes.
Buttercream Gang.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
we uh, dated for a while, got married, and then we moved to Wymount, which, for those of you who don't know who are listening, it's the on-campus housing at BYU for married students, and it was amazing. Um, and then in 2002, when my husband was graduating from BYU, he got a job offer back in Minnesota, so we moved back to Minnesota, where my family is from. And that brings me close to how I got to Eagle Mountain. While in Minnesota, I started a children's theater because my theater people and my voice teacher from high school said, Melissa, we want you to come and choreograph some numbers and do this for the choir that she ran. I said, I'll come and do that, but I really want to start a children's theater. So if you'll help me do that, let's do that. So that was one thing that I kind of did in Elk River, Minnesota, when we lived there. And then in 2007, my husband and I had twins, completely unplanned, not medicated, just randomly out of nowhere twins. And I stopped doing my children's theater because my hands were busy raising my twins. And then in 2008, when the economy started to take kind of a downturn during the Great Recession, he lost his job in Minnesota. And we were like, okay, now what do we do? Because I had been a teacher, but I stopped to raise my twins. And then I also, the school year had already started, and I couldn't just go back and teach and let him be Mr. Mom at home. So we decided we were going to move out west to live by my husband's parents. And he had come out to visit with his parents, his dad, and his dad needed to go to Eagle Mountain to visit and do some business trips and different things like that up here because his dad builds power plants. And he called me on the phone one night and he said, I don't think we're supposed to move to Vegas with my parents. I think we're supposed to move here. And I was like, what? And he was staying on Sioux Street with his brother in the ranches. And we prayed about it. And we went from our moving truck taking us to Las Vegas to within a few days deciding that it was going to move us to Eagle Mountain. And we rented a house out here and we loved it. And we lived in that house for 2 years. Then we moved to a different house in Eagle Mountain, which happens to a lot of people who live here. And
Yeah.
the rest is history. We've been here for 18 years. We moved here because it was a place that we could afford, but we stayed because we fell in love with it and we wanted this to be our kids' hometown. So that's a little bit like the fast forward version of me, but that's how we ended up in Eagle Mountain.
So you
Awesome.
go from Little Falls to Elk River to Eagle Mountain. These are all just picturesque named cities. I
Yeah,
love that.
it is true. And
And,
they all
and
have names.
Minneapolis too. So
Yeah,
picturesque. You forgot Minneapolis. Zach.
I
Very,
blocked
very
that part out,
convenient.
Matt. I
Very
blocked that
convenient.
part out. Yeah. Yeah.
You,
Awesome.
you make a really good point, though. I think Matt and I both, we used to be neighbors, and then we both moved away from that old neighborhood, but both chose to stay in Eagle Mountain. It is really a special place. There's a lot of families that come here. I think for us, it was economics at the time.
Us too.
Um, but then it's like, okay, we're ready to move out of this house. Where are we going to go? And we ended up staying here. So that's a really good point.
So, Zach, I know you're going to ask this question, but I wonder if we were on the topic with maybe it was the twins, but and maybe I'm wrong. What was one of the things we like to know is what's kind of one of the most challenging things in your life that you've overcome And for some reason, I thought raising twins might be it, but I don't know if I'm on the right track. Maybe it's something different.
No, actually, raising twins is really awesome because they
Okay.
always have a friend to hang out with.
Uh,
Like they keep each other busy. It was easier to raise my twins than my oldest, who's a singleton, or my youngest, who's a singleton.
mhm.
And um, I I think the hardest thing, there's been a lot of challenges throughout my
Sure.
life.
Sure.
Definitely moving from my mom's house into my dad's house. That was a huge adjustment. And definitely moving across the country, moving from BYU to Minnesota, and then from Minnesota to Eagle Mountain. Those are all challenges. Definitely difficult on a marriage. We had some of our worst fights ever when we were moving from Elk River to Eagle Mountain. But I think the hardest thing is my oldest was born with hip dysplasia, and that's basically where the sockets of your hips aren't finished forming when you're born. So her hip femurs would like kind of swish in and out of her sockets.
Ooh.
So I when she was about a month old, she had to have a surgery up at Primary Children's Hospital, and she was the youngest patient that orthopedic surgeon at the time had ever operated on because orthopedic surgery isn't a very big infant thing, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And
and you don't want to hear that from your surgeon. Like, "Ah, I've
Yeah.
never done this
Yeah.
before. Let's see
yeah,
how it
We're gonna
goes."
break some records here.
we're gonna
We're
break some
kind of
records.
we're just going
He's
for
a,
it.
he's actually a really world-renowned orthopedic surgeon. He's since retired, but it was I don't care who you are. When you are at Primary Children's Hospital and they have a baby that they're going to bring into surgery, the surgeon or the anesthesiologist comes out and gets the baby from your arms and you say goodbye and takes it back to the operating room and prep
Mhm.
and stuff. And I still to this day I had glasses and I remember my eyes were crying so hard that my glasses got wet from my tears. And you would think that that would be the hard part, but that wasn't the hardest part. She was in a body cast for like the entire first year of her life,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it had to change every like month to 6 weeks because babies grow, and it
Oh,
went from her armpits to her ankles.
wow.
And so we survived that. It was awful. She couldn't ride in a regular car seat. She had to be in a car bed. It was just insane. And looking back on it, I'm like, how in the world did you survive? But that still wasn't the most difficult part. When she was in eighth grade, she was like, Mom, my knees and my hips are hurting me. And so I was like, okay, let's bring you back in to see Dr. Stevens. We'll have him take a look at you, make sure there's no like residual things from when you were a baby. And he's like, wow, one of your legs is an inch and 3/4 longer than the other.
Oh.
And we're just like, awesome. And he ended up needing to do surgery where he went in and cut the top of her femur. And then she was off of her feet for like 8 weeks.
Oh.
And she had to be in a wheelchair, which was really, really, really hard. And then about 8 weeks into it, we were supposed to go back and visit the surgeon. And he came back in and he's like, You're never going to believe this. Three of her titanium screws have snapped. So we need to go back in and do this whole surgery all over again.
In the hip area or the femur one? Okay.
Hips,
Hips. Okay, so
hips.
this is
Oh
from
my
the
gosh.
Yes. So she went in, had that done. It was an emergency surgery, and she was in the OR for at least 8 hours because they had to go and like redo everything that was in there.
How do you snap a titanium screw? That's
To this
crazy.
day, I have questions.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. All right, go ahead. Keep
Yeah,
going.
it's just insane.
So
Like
she's in the
it was
sorry,
sort
so I didn't mean to interrupt you. She's in the OR for 8 hours, you said,
yes.
right? Okay.
And this time they wheeled her back. They didn't come and get her out of my arms like they did when she was a baby. But the hardest thing ever was taking a trip to Walmart. So all of that, but the worst part of it was taking a trip to Walmart. And I remember I needed to go to the pharmacy and get something. So that meant I had to take all four of my kids with me. So Hannah's wheelchair didn't fit in the back of our minivan with its wheels on. So I had to take the wheels off and then put them back on. So first thing I did at Walmart, get out, put her wheelchair together. Second thing, lift Hannah out of the van and put her in the wheelchair. Third thing was get my twins out and put them next to Hannah so she could hold on to their hands while I got the baby out, Eliza, and put her in her car seat in the shopping cart. Then closed all the doors, and I had to push a wheelchair and a shopping cart and hold on to twins all at the same time. And we looked like the biggest circus. And I just remember thinking, Melissa, if you can do this, you can literally do anything. And
Run
I
for
did.
mayor, you
Yeah,
know.
right? So, and what's so cool about it is I look back on that and I can tell my oldest daughter, I'm like, look what you survived through. You were in a body cast, you were in a wheelchair. She had to go to eighth grade in a wheelchair, which totally sucked because kids are mean.
You thought your
And
eighth grade was hard, right?
right, right. And the thing that was tricky too is my twins had special needs. So like in addition to Hannah, I was taking them to OT and PT every single week. And my poor youngest daughter is just a trooper. She's just along for the ride for everything. So, those years, like 2013, 2014, were the worst. And I am so grateful for the community that we have here in Eagle Mountain because we had the most amazing friends and neighbors that stepped up and helped us in so many ways. So even though it was like one of the most difficult times of our life, it was such a reaffirming time because there were such incredible people that surrounded us. It was this true community that helped us. So that's the hardest thing that I've ever had to endure.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Zach, you gotta do the the segue here. Go ahead. What's your next question?
Well, no,
I
I'm just
was
thinking, often when you ask people a question like that and then ask them what's your greatest success or what would you view as your greatest success, sometimes it is that same getting through those experiences. But I'm curious, obviously you've successfully navigated through that. Now your kids are much older. Um, what has been your greatest success in life, would you say?
Well, hands down, my greatest success is being a mother and a wife. Like, there's nothing more important than what I do there. But I remember it was the summer of 2022. I had worked for the chamber for, I don't know, 6 months maybe. And I came home. It was a really long, busy day, and we had done all these amazing things. We had done a meeting with all the local nonprofits, and we were introducing them to some of the bigger businesses that like to donate to nonprofits. And then there were a few other things that happened that day. And I remember getting home and it was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I just kind of collapsed on the couch. And my husband was like, how was your day? And I started crying and I said, Nathan, everything I've ever wanted to do for our city, I got to do today. And sorry, I'm not normally a baby. I just have strong emotions. Anyway, I told him, I said, first we got to do this in the morning. It was so cool because we had all these nonprofits come and meet with this business and kind of do some speed dating basically to tell the business their needs. And while we were doing that, all the nonprofits were sitting out in like our main space here at the chamber and they were all kind of interacting. And pretty soon the Arts Alliance was planning stuff with the library and this group was planning stuff with Friends in Need Animal Sanctuary. It was just the coolest thing. And then there were a few other things throughout the day. And I just remember just feeling so grateful that I could see how I was making a difference. So, in a lot of ways, obviously parenting and being a wife, but getting to be able to give back in the community that you love was huge for me. When I told you guys I studied voice, in my voice teacher's studio, there was this cross-stitched little thing framed that said, what we are is God's gift to us. What we become is our gift to God.
Wow.
And I've taken that with me throughout my life since I was in junior high and high school. And that day was the epitome of that cross-stitched statement. It was God giving me so much and me being able to take a step back and bring all of these different things together into one place and to see how he would be able to work his divine hand in all of it And it was really cool. And I remember just sitting there on the couch, just crying to my husband with tears of joy, of how incredible that day was. And it was just such a simple day, but it was a neat culmination of all of that. So,
I'm a sucker for good quotes. That's like a top 10. That's a great quote.
yes.
Really makes you think about your life and what you're doing.
Right. Right.
I
So,
love it. So, how did you transition? Were you at the chamber first before you
oh,
were on? Tell me a little bit about your genesis, because I know you've been on the city council. You've had kind of two
yes.
distinct different terms that you've served.
Right.
What was it that like gave you the confidence? Because I feel like you do have to be pretty confident to run for city council or run for mayor. What was like the the timeline there of how you came into city council?
Great question. I, like many other people here in Eagle Mountain, would go to Facebook to complain about my elected officials. And I was ranting and raving
That never
about
happens. That never
never
happens.
happens. Never happens. I was ranting and raving about traffic. And I was also complaining about the Corey Ride Park. I was really frustrated. We had seemingly all of these unfinished quote unquote parks throughout the city, and it felt like instead of building yet another one that would be unfinished, let's focus on finishing some of the ones that exist. And I was complaining about it. And then one day I got a phone call, and the person on the other line said, "Hello, is this Melissa?" And I said, "Yes." And the person said, "This is Chris Pengra. Melissa, do you have a few minutes? I'd like to talk to you about some of your concerns." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you guys, he was the mayor at the time." And
Right.
I was like, jaw to the floor. "Yeah, sure, I have time." And he proceeded to tell me all about why we were doing what we were doing with the park, in the dead center of town, basically, and the whole concept of bringing people together and the unity and just kind of bringing we for a long time, anybody who's lived here for a while knows it was like we had two different cities. It was like ranches and city center. And this park was an effort to kind of bring all of us together. And then he explained where the funding came from, like impact fees, that kind of stuff, but also utility sale funds. So we were paying cash for this park. So like there was a lot of nuances there. And I learned two things conversation. One, there's always way more to the story. There's way more details that we as regular lay citizens may not understand quite yet. And then two, there's real people behind every decision that's made in a city. So Chris Pengra was a real person who took the time to reach out to me, another real person, and help me have a better understanding. So that was kind of the start for me to get into city stuff. Shortly after that, Chris Pengra appointed me to our Parks and Rec board, and that was an incredible opportunity. I had previously, I was one of the founders of the Eagle Mountain Arts Alliance. So I knew lots of people from around the community, but being able to serve and be appointed and have to swear an oath, that was a new thing for me. And I love that. I met so many incredible people while serving, like Ben Reeves, who was on city council. I met Jared Gray serving there. We both served at the same time, and we got to do some really cool things. So that's what got me on Parks and Rec. And then from there, I remember attending city council meetings and looking up on the dais. And at the time, it was Colby Curtis, Stephanie Gracious, Ben Reeves, Adam Bradley, and Tom Westmoreland up there. And I was like, no one up there has the same perspective as I do. Stephanie was the one and only woman that was up there, and she was really, really young, and her kids were just teeny, teeny tinies and didn't have teenagers or anything yet. And I remember thinking, I don't hear my voice up there. And then as time to run for city council was, to file, I started to kind of feel a tap on the shoulder, like, Melissa, you need to go share the perspective of your neighborhood and people who are in the same station of life as you. So I decided to file to run, and I was really good friends with what was then Representative Jefferson Moss. And I called him up and I was like, "Jeff, I want to be the best, most prepared city council member. who do I need to talk to? What do I need to read? What do I need to do so I'm not a complete idiot on city council? And he was like, go talk to Terry Newell down at UDOT. Go talk to Andrew Jackson at MAG. Talk to Val Hale, who was over Go Ed at the time, the Governor's Office of Economic Development. And I did all of those things. And then I was like, okay, who do I talk to next? And he just kept giving me, like, this is what you need to learn. And so I ran for office, and that year was 2017. And at the same time, Donna Burnham was running for her third term, and Mayor Westmoreland was running to be mayor. So that's kind of how I got started. And then you mentioned I have like two different kind of paths here in the city. Um, at the time I was working a corporate job. I was a high-level project manager, so I was over seven different teams across the nation and managing all of these people and all of these projects and millions of dollars worth of products that were going to market. And I I love serving on city council. And toward the end of my first term, people who were serving on planning commission and city council started reaching out to me and saying, Melissa, you need to run for mayor. Melissa, you should run for mayor. You're the one who we want to have run for mayor. So that's 2021. And finally, I kind of decided, okay, I'll run for mayor. I'm really good friends with Tom. I hate to run against a friend, but I saw the wisdom in what they were saying. So I ran for mayor, but it was the end of my city council term. So I lost to Tom Westmoreland by 207 votes. And I also lost my seat because I wasn't in the middle of my term. So at the end of that year, I was done on council. I was like super heartbroken because you guys know how much I love the city. And I was just kind of recovering from all of that and doing a few little things in the community. And Diane Bradshaw, who was the chair of the chamber at the time, reached out to me and said, Melissa, we're looking for a new executive director. Would you please share this on your social media? Because she knew that I could get the word out. And I was like, yes, we need to find the very best person to serve as the executive director of the chamber. And at the time, it didn't even occur to me that, like, oh, I should apply for this job. But as people were asking me questions like, what does the chamber do? And I was answering, I was like, Melissa, you're supposed to apply to be the executive director of the chamber. And at the time, it was just like a little part-time job. So in my mind, I was like basically replacing my time that I had put into city council into my part-time job at the chamber. I could do that and be a full-time corporate leader, right? This is a great plan. So I ended up growing the chamber so much that it had to become a full-time job. And I ended up leaving my corporate job, taking the full-time job at the chamber. And and then in 2023, there were three seats open. Colby Curtis and Carolyn Love were not going to run for their seats again. So I was like, I should run again. I should run for city council. I still have more to give. So that's where you find me here. I served on city council. I ran for city council. I won, and now I'm serving both as the CEO now of the Chamber of Commerce and on city council, and I'm running for mayor. So
And this
that's
is
all I
a
got.
this election. I mean, I've kind of been following Eagle Mountain politics. We have lived out here, I don't know, 18, maybe the same time, like 18 or 19 years, something like that.
Yep.
And I would say this mayoral race, we're getting like probably the highest caliber. No disrespect to prior mayoral runs, but it's a pretty deep, experienced bench of people who have served in the city for a long time. Like in my view, like none of them have faked a kidnapping yet, which is good. That's a positive. When we moved out here,
Oh,
Eagle Mountain was like the joke of Utah, and it was a little embarrassing there for a bit. But then we started getting just like Chris Pangra was great. Um, I thought he was pretty solid. I was actually sad to see him move on, but he's a really good communicator. But I think this is like a pretty good race. What would you say differentiates you from some of the other candidates that are running? Like, what is your vision for Eagle Mountain, or where do you see things going 4 years from now, like looking back after a Melissa Clark mayoral um, term, what does Eagle Mountain look like? Do we have better roads? Do we have a rec center? Do we um, do all of the Eagle Mountain citizens complaints just disappear? They're eviscerated because the city's running so
He's just
well.
gonna call them one by one and explain it to
We're gonna pump helium into the air so everyone's
him.
happy all the time.
She might.
Anyway,
Whenever I text Melissa, she's like, text me right back. Here's who you need to call. Where you need to submit a form, or yeah, maybe share with us, what is your vision? What's broken? What needs to be fixed? Where will you be spending most of your energy?
awesome. The great questions. Feel free to jump in and repeat some of them if I get too far off the task and answering them. But first, I just want to recognize that you're right. We've had some really incredible mayors over the last few years. They really elevated what we do here in Eagle Mountain. And I guess the bar was really low. Just someone who didn't fake their own kidnapping, someone who didn't, and someone who would be a turn. Like that was a really, and Heather Jackson did a great job of the whole marketing piece of Find Yourself in Eagle Mountain. And then Chris Pegra came in and he really helped propel us forward with economic development. And he did the groundwork for getting us things like Facebook and Google and Tyson and those things. And then John Painter was like a little interim mayor there for like 3, 4 months. And he did a great job of helping us solidify our planning commission and adding a few key people to that. And then Mayor West came in, then a slow and steady force that didn't rock the boat too much, and just kept the wheels on the bus, right? So why does Melissa need to run? Why, what do we need that's different? Well, I am incredible at being present in our community. I think for some people, people are like, how does she do it? Doesn't she have like a real job during the day? Or like how does she answer everything on Facebook and just different things like that? And a lot of it just has to do with the fact that remember that story that I told you about me being the one who complained on Facebook? I started to realize that the big difference between me right now and the people who are complaining on Facebook right now is just information. A lot of people could handle what's happening in our city if they understood better why and how we got here. So me being present in people's businesses, in people's neighborhoods, um, at the schools sets me apart. There's no one else that spends that much time with our community that I do. And they're all amazing people that are running, by the way. That's not a slam on them. It's just who I am. And then the other piece is that I am super accessible. If you message me on Facebook, if you call me on the phone, if you text me, if you stop me at the store, I'm there always. Whether it's late at night or whatever, I answer and I make sure that you're heard. Another thing that sets me apart is that I'm a problem solver. I'm the kind of person that when somebody says that can't be done, there's no way that we can make that happen. I dig in until I find a way. And that's not Melissa solving the problems. That's Melissa leveraging her network and asking, how can we make this work? Coming up with creative ideas. Um, the other thing that I'm really good at is I've served in so many capacities within our city between different church service stuff and leading out with family history to emergency preparedness stuff and being on the CERT team to the Arts Alliance to the, you name it, I've done it. And it's that sense of connection. Government doesn't have to solve every problem. Government should just be a catalyst for bringing problem solvers together. So in that way, I'm really different because I'm a connector. I'm one of those people that like brings the resources to the people and the people to the resources that they need. I'm also different in that I'm really good with follow through. A great example of that is when I was on Parks and Rec, a family came in and it was the cutest thing. They brought all their little skateboarding friends from, the neighborhood and they had done this little petition and it was written in like pen and some colored pencils. It was just like the way you'd picture a petition that kids made
Yeah.
in your head. And so that was way back like in 2016. They came in and they wanted help getting a skate park built. And we had one, but it was way down in City Center, which was a really long haul for any of the kids that lived up here in the multifamily in the ranches. And the whole time that I was on city council, I was trying to find ways to get the funds to be able to pull that off, to gain the support of people on our city council to be able to appropriate the funds to be able to finish and really build out Smith Ranch Park. So back to how I'm different. The follow through piece for me is even though it took 6 years, we were finally able to get Smith Ranch Park built and built so that it really reflected the values of our community, both our kids, our teens that were growing and needed something more like a skate park or a ninja course, but also our values of open space and wildlife. And you see that even in the playground equipment. So follow through. It may take a while sometimes, but I don't give up. So that's another piece for me. And I think the other thing that really makes me stand out as far as the candidate is that I don't have a hidden agenda. I have an incredible job at the chamber. I have a way to serve people here. I've done tons of things in my career, leading people, managing, and stuff like that. So I'm not running for a title or because it's the next step in some sort of corporate ladder or something for me. I'm running to serve the people and improve how our city functions. So that's how I'm different. And then I think you asked a question about
Let me restate really quick before, and then we'll get to the question of
okay,
what you kind of vision. I think that's about vision, right, Zach? So what I heard was that you want to get information, communication to people so they understand why things are happening. You have a variety of experiences that would help solve, well, and then you said solve problems and then follow through to make sure those problems are solved or the agenda that you guys decide on is complete. Is that a fair restatement of what you said?
for sure.
So
I
that's kind
think
of the
that is a really,
qualification piece. Sorry.
yeah, you're good.
No, that sounds like a really good qualification piece. So that leads into the next question, I think, Zach, which is what do you imagine 4 years from now? If you're mayor, what does 4 years from now look like?
I love that question. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Um, Really, in our city, we do more in one meeting than most cities do an entire year. So when you work at that pace, um, things fall through the cracks. And in a lot of ways, we've asked our city employees to do far too much, far too little for far too long. And I want us to get kind of our house in order. And that doesn't mean that people are doing things the wrong way. It means that we can stop being reactive or feeling like we're living in fight or flight. Like, there's an emergency, we need to solve it. Oh, here's this other emergency, we need to solve it. As someone who's been a project manager, I can look at where things are falling apart and help fix some of the process. So I want to end that kind of reactive band-aid approach to growth by putting some systems into place for planning, accountability, and oversight, making sure that when it's all said and done, we evaluate whether or not this park has been taken care of or this road is done the way it's supposed to do. One other thing that in 4 years from now, I want our residents to feel like Eagle Mountain represents them, that we're not just moving forward around them or in spite of them, but they're a part of our process. We talked about communication and me communicating to them, but I also think it's important that we provide opportunities for our residents to communicate back to us. It's one of the saddest things in the world that the only time that we really hear from our residents is election year. I really want to make sure that our residents know what's going on so that they can be a part of the conversation before the decision's made, not us explaining to them later why we made the decision, why we the way we did it. And then also I I see a road that connects SR 73 up into Wildflower, that kind of connector, spring run connector that goes through there. That's got to be in place. SR 73 will for sure have begun its widening. I want the Mid Valley connector to go from City Center over to the Kiowa Valley area where it connects to Mountain View Corridor. Those three road pieces will be improved. Um, I also think that we've done a really great job in our city of putting in some education pieces and working keep up with water. Um, but we haven't quite hit the mark on that. And I want us to be better about planning ahead with our water and making sure that our residents don't ever worry that they're not going to be able to turn their sprinklers on at night, or they're not going to be able to turn their water on to water their animals or whatever. Like, that's a huge piece to me. I want people to be able to have that kind of sense of peace and safety. And along with that, I want us to be ready for emergencies. A lot of people will rant and rave about we only have two ways in and out of the city,
Hmm.
and and they're terrified of that. Those of us who lived through the dump fire know what it was like to be evacuated from our homes and to just get in our vehicles and drive away and not know if our home would be there
Yeah.
when we came back. So to
I'm
continue
thinking of
to
that
be
snowstorm where you couldn't get home from work
I know.
years and years ago.
Which one? Yeah,
Well,
there's been a
I don't,
couple.
this is the one I remember. I went and saw a movie with my buddy and slept over at my brother-in-law's house. So
Yeah. Oh, I remember. I was on Redwood sitting in traffic, wondering if I was gonna have enough gas to like finish the journey in the
Well, and
middle of winter.
that's exactly it. There were people that were wandering around the Smiths because they couldn't get home and up and over the hill into
Yeah.
Eagle Mountain.
Yeah.
And there were kids that I know for sure had to stay at Lakeview Academy because their parents couldn't get to them.
mhm.
I want us to be ready for stuff like that, not just reactive, but be ready. And we've done a lot of really cool things as a city. And I've personally helped with some of those things. Like, we have CERT trailers now for our community emergency response team, where two trailers fully outfitted with ham radio, antenna, generator,
Oh, that's
pop-up.
cool. I didn't know that.
Like,
For the city,
yes.
we have that. Oh, that's cool.
So before I was on city council, I was really big into CERT. We did CERT training in our neighborhood, all of that stuff. And when I got put on city council, Mayor Westmoreland gave me an assignment to kind of be an interface with our VIPs, our sheriff's department, UFA, our CERT people, emergency communications. And at the time, our emergency plan as a city hadn't been updated since the early 2000s. So I worked to figure out how to get that funded, and FEMA has grants for that. So worked with that. We got an intern to help write the plan, and that was all under Jeff Weber. The plan was put into place. We passed it as a city council, and then we ended up hiring David Yellowberry, who's a longtime Eagle Mountain resident, but he also worked for UFA forever. He, like, he's literally done and seen it all, and we're in such a better place now. But I think we need to just tighten that up just a little bit more and provide the resources for that, but then to go back and help our residents feel really involved. We have it's like over 300 people now in Eagle Mountain that are ham radio licensed, meaning we have that huge of a communications network. So stuff like that. So back to answering your question, 4 years from now, we'll be better prepared for emergencies. Um, Another thing is I would like for us to have less turnover in our city, taking care of the boots on the ground, making sure that they're paid enough to be able to live in Eagle Mountain and serve in Eagle Mountain. But we've also
Are you
had,
talking about city type workers? Is that what you're saying?
yes,
Okay.
yes, we've also had four different city managers since Mayor Westmoreland started 8 years ago. And that's a lot of turnover. That's a lot of tumult, and it's costly. Every single time we have to hire a new one, we have to
Retrain.
go search for them. Like, it's a lot. So really trying to get us our leadership, the higher end of what's going on in our city stabilized, but then so that our employees, boots on the ground, also feel stable and where they are. Um, and then huge thing to me, and this just comes from my business background, is making data-driven decisions. We have to be able to like track and report everything that we do as a city back to our residents, and not just to our residents, but to our elected officials. When I first started on city council, we didn't have like a really great system for tracking when complaints or concerns would come in. Now we have a system, it's one view. And when you go into it, whether you're a resident or an employee or a council member, you can submit essentially like a help desk ticket. And what it does is it issues you an email as a person who's sending in the complaint and says, this is being assigned to Joe Schmo and Streets, right? And then every time something's done with it,
Joe
the
is
email
always reliable.
is
I love Joe Schmo. He's so great.
Joe
Sorry.
Schmo's like
Sorry.
employee of the century.
Joe Schmo.
Anyway,
He's awesome. Sorry. It's an
no,
email.
you're fine.
Email. Joe Schmo's taking care of it. Sorry to interrupt you. And then what
No,
happens?
you're good. Well, what's cool about it is like at the end of the year, we should be able to pull the data on that and look at how many calls were brought into utility billing, how many calls were brought into streets, all of those different pieces.
Mhm.
And then along with our asset management system that um, Brad Hickman's really working to bring online, those two pieces will be able to spit out a dashboard or a report to help our decision makers who are making a decision about the budget make the best, most informed decision. And that can be something that we share back with the public and help them understand this is why we're only hiring 3 deputies this year instead of 6 or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, I I just want this city to feel like it's our own. And this may be kind of Pollyanna, but I really believe in that concept of a shining city on a hill. The Pilgrims spoke about it, then Reagan taught about it. And I believe that Eagle Mountain can be a place of peace and prosperity that our kids can be proud to call their hometown. That's what I want 4 years from now. I don't want it to be about Melissa Clark. I don't want it to be about like anyone, anything in the city. I want it to be a place where we don't have to worry about that our water's going to turn on or there might be a fire because we've put all the pieces into place so we can sleep at night and just feel that peace and prosperity.
Sounds like you want to take a high level view, plan correctly, and make the correct decisions and communicate those decisions and get feedback to do kind of what's the right thing for the community. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and I think some people have asked me like, what's the difference between what you're doing right now as city council and what you would do as mayor? And
It's a good question.
I'm just going to ask myself that question.
Please
Okay,
do.
so what I would say is the mayor in our city is meant to be the chief executive officer in our city and make sure that the will of our city council is taken care of and that it's executed because the city council is to act as the voice of the people. And
Yep.
I think a really good job of acting as the voice of the people in my role as city council. Now I think I need to put on a different hat, become mayor, and act to execute the will of the people via the will of the body and make sure those things are happening. There's lots of like little management things, obviously, that I can bring to the table. I'm not a micromanager. I like finding really good people who have a good vision for accomplishing things and giving them the resources and the latitude to be able to do what they need to do. Also, one thing that I've been thinking about lately is I remember the years that Jared Gray, Brett Wright, and Rich Wood were all on planning commission together, and they did a really good overhaul of our residential and commercial zoning code and kind of
Yep.
fixed it. The reason why those guys were able to do that as planning commissioners was because people like me were on city council worrying about the blasting, worrying about Facebook that was coming, talking to Tyson. We were doing all of the other stuff so that they could drill down and really work on code. I want us to get back to that point where it isn't council members kind of doing some mayoral duties and council member duties and like all this other stuff. I want our council to be able to hunker down, focus on being efficient, getting a good budget, and making sure that our code is ironclad. We need a mayor that's got their eyes out on what's going on in the greater state and in the nation and the county. but is protecting that time of our council members so that they can focus on what they're really good at. And that's where I would do things differently as a mayor than what I'm doing right now as a city council member.
Maybe one more question before we kind of wrap up here. Eagle Mountain is growing. I don't even think people know. How many citizens do we have
We have
right now?
75,000 people right now.
75,000.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. How do you balance the I don't know how to say this. Like we have no very low light pollution in Eagle Mountain. We have a lot of open spaces, but we know that the state is pushing really hard to build 30,000 units, I think, in the next year or a couple years. And they're probably looking at Eagle Mountain thinking, oh my gosh, they've got so much space out there. And they're putting a lot of pressure on cities to develop. But you have citizens that are saying, my traffic commute is a nightmare. How do you balance that out? And I know that's not just a mayoral question, but it's also going to come back to city council. Like, is that a fight that can be won, or is there balance that can be achieved between the state and the city? Like, what kind of role do you think you'd have there as a mayor, maybe being an ambassador for Eagle Mountain?
That's such a good question. Not only can that be a fight that can be won, but it's a test we cannot afford to fail. No one in a city says to themselves, man, I wish that we would have built more townhomes. Man, I wish we would have gotten rid of this beautiful park or this beautiful open space. No one says that 100 years from now. Everyone's always like, oh, remember when we used to have this? Remember when we used to have that? One of my big platform items is protecting the beauty and lifestyle we love here. And it's absolutely possible. And I've shown through the things that I've done with the chamber my ability to work with neighboring cities, with our county, with our state. I've traveled and visited all sorts of other cities within our state because I get asked to speak at a conference here or there talking about what we're doing for economic development. And I've seen the good and the bad that's happening out there. And I absolutely believe that we're capable of doing that. A lot of that is contingent on what we're able to do with economic development. If we continue to let our data centers grow, if we make sure that they have the power that they need, and that is a state and federal lift. It's not just an Eagle Mountain problem. It's a problem all of us are tackling together. If we're able to do that, then we're able to fund the things that our people in our community need. And someday we'll even be able to fund some of the things that we want. So I absolutely think that there's a way to do that. There's very busy places that still have dark skies. So that isn't a foregone conclusion that we're going to lose out on that open space thing. But what it takes is someone who is intentional, who works with the people that are surrounding them, and someone who never backs down. And I think if there's anybody, it's me. I don't back down. So um, I I know that we can create that shining city on a hill that I talked about. I know that if any place can do it, it's Eagle Mountain. We're special. We're capable of doing the most amazing things here. We already have. It's just keeping us on that trajectory and moving forward in a way that reflects the values of our people, not the mandates of external forces.
That's awesome. Anything else that you want to add before I ask a final question?
I guess thank you, first of all, for having me on. I'm super grateful to just be able to get to know the two of you a little bit better and share a little bit about me and what I'm trying to do. But what I would say is there are amazing people who are running for mayor right now. People that I love and think of as family in a lot of ways. And it's going to be really hard when you get your ballot to make that decision of like, which circle do I fill in? I believe that each of us that is running has different talents and traits and abilities, but we need to elect the person that has the talents and traits and abilities that Eagle Mountain needs right now. We need someone who's capable of seeing the big picture and executing what needs to happen. We need someone who's capable of going out and getting the resources that Eagle Mountain deserves and needs to have. We need someone who's more than just a good person. We need someone who's good at the job we're hiring them to do. And in business, I see all the time with our different businesses here in the chamber, talking about hiring and recruiting and retaining really good talent. We don't hire someone for our business because they're our friend or because they're amazing and they're nice. We hire them because they've got the right skill set to do the job. And the case that I would make to the people listening is hire me. Hire me to go be your voice on behalf of the city. Hire me to help get our house in order. Hire me to finish what we started 29 years ago.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. And just as we wrap up, Matt, did you have something you wanted to
Oh, I
ask?
was just going to say, I'm probably the least politically aware person on this podcast, which is not hard, I guess. How do we vote? No, this is more for everybody else. Like, how do we, because this is primaries in August, right? So how do we tell the people like me who care and want to get involved, but they're pretty lazy like me, and they know they should get more involved and they need to be involved in this primary for sure. Because most people think November, right? Like people might be listening to this and think, oh, November, I'm going to vote for Melissa. Well, if you don't vote for Melissa in August, you might not see your name on there. So how do we tell us the scoop on that?
So, first things first, I want everyone to go to vote.utah.gov, type in your information, make sure your voter registration is assigned to the address you're living at right now. If it's not, your ballot will get sent someplace else and you will not be able to vote in this race. So, go make sure that you check your info. Next, around July 21st, 22nd, we'll start seeing ballots arrive at our homes. When that gets here, don't wait. Don't throw it in the junk drawer. Don't don't set it on top of a stack of magazines. Sit down with your family and sit down with your kids and explain to them why you're voting the way you vote. Take them with you to drop that ballot off in our secure drop box that has 24/7 cameras on it and go vote. And you have to have your ballot in the hands of our county clerk by August 12th. Do not wait to drop it off or put it in the mail until August 10th because it will not get there in time and your vote won't count. After you've cast your ballot, you've sent it in, you dropped it off, or you show up the day of voting, I want you to go back into that vote.utah.gov and I want you to check because it will say the status of your ballot in there. It will say your ballot's been sent to you, or your ballot's been received by the county clerk, or it will say your ballot's been counted. Don't stop checking until it says your ballot's been counted. Then you know for a certainty that your voice is being heard. So, in summation, make sure you're registered, double check your info. Once you get your ballot, sit down with your family and fill it out. Teach your kids why this is important. Drop it off well in advance of August 12th and go back and check to make sure that it's counted. Our elections for local office are more crucial than any other election that we'll ever have the opportunity to be in. From where the stuff goes when we flush our toilets, to our garbage pickup, to the traffic we sit in every day, this race is huge. And we want to make sure that our voice is heard, not just here in Eagle Mountain, but to send a glaring message to the state and federal government that in Eagle Mountain, we all vote. We've got our stuff together and we're one voice on this.
Okay,
Matt, there's no pickleball unless you vote, Matt.
Okay, it is a
Take
deal.
on the paddle
I
away.
was just gonna say I try to be really neutral. In fact, I don't know if you know this, Melissa, but we started this podcast about books, and there's three rules: no swearing, no politics, and what was the last one?
No religion.
No religion. So we like said, so to have politicians on here is weird. And great, it's cool. But I'll just tell you this: that little summation of how we should vote and why it's important and everything you said is probably the reason people should vote for you. Again, I'm trying to be neutral, but that is 100% my problem. I get it. I'm like, oh, drug trial. Yeah, I'll do this. Oh, I got 3 weeks to fill this out. So what you just said is probably one of the reasons you should vote for Melissa if you're considering her, because she obviously understands the follow through portion and clearly understands people's propensity to procrastinate like me. So there you go. Thanks
All
for
right.
answering that question. That was a great answer.
Last question, Melissa. What are you reading, or do you have a favorite book that you want to share or quickly pitch to everybody?
Yes. So I love to read. I love to study. My very, very favorite book of all time is Roots by Alex Haley. And because it like completely turned my heart to family history and how our ancestors mean so much and are so formative in who we become. So that's my favorite book. But the things that I'm reading right now are Good Energy by Dr. Casey Means and Callie Means. It's amazing. If you're fascinated at all by big pharma, big tobacco, and big food, you must read Good Energy. It is so, so good. It's talking about like what we put into our bodies and how it changes us. And it's such a good book. Then there's the old standbys like Atomic Habits. Um, I've been listening as I've been driving to Ronald Reagan in his own voice, and it's the coolest
Oh,
kind
that'd be
of
great.
compilation of his speeches and his radio appearances. So like that's a really good one. I love Five Dysfunctions of a Teen. That's definitely something that will shape how I am as mayor. And the other one that I'm just kind of reading for me to kind of grow myself is the Let Them theory. I'm listening to that right now with Mel Robbins. And if you are an overthinker and you get in your head about stuff that people do, that's a really great one for just being a grown up and letting things go that are outside of your power. So
It's awesome.
that's my list of things that I'm
I love
working
it.
on right
I
now.
love it.
Melissa, thank you.
Yeah,
We
thanks for
Thank
really
being on it.
you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you
Yeah, it's great
guys.
to get to know you and appreciate it. And best of luck. Again, remember, do not procrastinate when you go. Well, first of all, go online, make sure it's coming to the right place. Do not procrastinate. Get it in the secure Dropbox. Check to, oh, sorry, look with your family and tell them why you're voting. And then check to make sure that your vote is counted. Right? Did I get it right?
Yes.
And
I'm so
Yes.
good.
where can people go to find you, Melissa, or find more about your platform? And
So I'm on Facebook, obviously, and a little bit of Instagram. I'm old, so I'm mostly on Facebook. But if you go to my website, Melissa, the number four, mayor.com, it has a little bit about me, and I even on there have a resume because I think you guys should hire me to be your next mayor. And it talks about things that I've worked on over the years that I've served in the city. And the other thing you can do is just call me or text me. My phone number is 801 357 9156. 801-357-9156. Call me because I'm a better leader and a better representative when I hear from you. So
thank you.
Great to
Thanks,
have you.
Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa. We'll catch you
thanks,
next
guys.
time on the Pitchbook Podcast.